For a narrative adventure game about interstellar travel where you attempt to settle and uncover the mysteries on a faraway planet, Jett the Far Shore should have been a memorable game. Its fast-flying ship and strong exploration of colonialism makes for an excellent framework. But despite its beautiful soundtrack and fun flying, Jett's narrative shortcomings and frequent gameplay frustrations ultimately drag it down from the game it could have been. In Jett the Far Shore, you play as May, an anchorite burdened with the task of leaving your home and tribe on a decaying world for a journey to embark to the stars. As a member of the Scouts, you must fulfill your 4 directives on your interstellar mission to settle on a distant, mythic ocean planet, chasing the source of a strange signal known as the Him Wave. Co-piloting a jet with your partner, Isao, May skims along ocean waves and alien forests as the crew begins to log and understand their environment they now inhabit, their new home. While Jett certainly considers its sense of adventure in the pilot's seat, its juxtaposition with melancholy and existential dread works to reinforce its aesthetic the story seeks to tell. The fact that the crew frequently considers the weight of their task while still forefronting the inhabitants of the planet they've now left behind adds a level of nuance a sci-fi story of this scale needs. Without it, your tasks of collecting data just wouldn't feel as important. Jett is only strengthened by a breathtaking score, led by composer Scientific, and an opening sequence so awe-inspiring I can only compare it with some of the greatest science fiction films I've seen. Somehow, Superbrothers and Popagenda are able to capture the grandiosity of how sublime the universe can be, and with great sound design and beautiful alien environments, Jett the Far Shore makes for a game that isn't just fun to look at, but a world to exist in as you unveil the ominous truths found on the planet through May's discoveries. One of Jett's most prominent features is its dialogue, opting for a subtitled, fictional language with many words left undefined, leaving the player to understand them through context. While this can get dense, I found this decision to ultimately add to the overall atmosphere and world building the game seeks to establish in its aesthetic. While there are certainly the hurdles of trying to understand each of Jett's moving parts, the overall narrative ends up being more curiosity-driven than difficult, if but occasionally a little obtuse. To my surprise, Jett frequently reminds the player to meditate on the events the Scouts must endure in conjunction with the people you left behind. One particular scene had May and Isao step foot aground a small island in the strange, new, vast ocean, saying a prayer to honor those left behind and to wish fortune for their new home. Contrary to the typical implications of Manifest Destiny, however, the Scouts are aware of their presence as colonizers, often remarking on how little they wish to affect the present alien life on the planet. Your team will comment on their disturbance of nature, asking forgiveness if forced into encounters with the wildlife. They'll even steer May away from performing unnecessary griefing of plants and animals. I found myself building a sense of community with my crew as we continued to interrogate questions of colonialism while aboard ground control. This made me appreciate quiet moments of tradition, like when the Scouts come together to share broth, that much more. This only made the insidious discoveries of the planet much more important, as I cared not just for the safety of May, but for the entirety of the crew. However, while Jett's narrative was certainly captivating for the kinds of meditative, sci-fi stories I'm interested in, I found its pacing to hinder the overall experience. For a game roughly 10 to 12 hours in length, spending more time tending to the mundane tasks like tracking down missing equipment, rather than uncovering the mysteries of the planet, left me impatient throughout a lot of my playtime. Compounded with a climax that comes too quickly and leaves plenty left unanswered, the overall ending left much to be desired. Ultimately, the focus of Jett the Far Shore lies with its exploration between locations and the collection of data and less with its prophetic mystery. Without patience or proper expectations, certain players may feel frustrated at the presentation of what is ultimately a disjointed narrative. You'll spend much of Jett's runtime piloting your ship around the alien planet. You can surge to gain speed, pop to gain elevation over obstacles, and drift to turn around tight corners. Reaching your ship's top speed is where Jett's gameplay truly shines. While handling can occasionally feel tight, specifically while drifting, the overall sense of speed and exploration never stop feeling fun. You'll also be having to keep an eye on your ship's gauge while surging to avoid overheating and draining your ship's shield. And while the moments May steps aground can control somewhat clunky, the overall sense of scale as the game switches to first person allows for the interrogation of the human element on this alien planet the game seeks to forefront. But not all of Jett's gameplay relies solely on exploration. There are also the occasional puzzles and big encounters. While the game's puzzles were never truly challenging, I found the switch from exploration to direct interactions with the environment to be a welcome change of pace. Testing out the PlayStation hint cards for a puzzle where May must calm down a creature, I was surprised at the level of quality found in the detail of the hint's description and video. Moreover, large-scale encounters with the game's creatures weren't just visually impressive, as the game's camera shifts back to capture the sense of scale, but were so impressively hectic that I found myself asking why there weren't more in the game. However, much of Jett's moment-to-moment gameplay can get frustrating. Trying to interpret symbols on screen and read descriptions of the things you log, all while flying and keeping an eye on your gauge, while simultaneously reading the ongoing subtitles from dialogue, can be overstimulating, especially early on. Other times, you'll be forced to kill time by logging information out in the world while awaiting your next objective. While I can certainly appreciate Superbrothers' intent on crafting a meditative experience focused on scientists and explorers, having the narrative on pause until you spend 20 minutes collecting data ultimately feels jarring and unnecessary. Further, much of the game's objectives feel too restrained. A tutorial for a new ability took too long, despite the ability being something simple, especially considering it was introduced halfway through the game. Many times the game would even be outright interrupted, pausing the action to have Isao explain your objective. This annoyingly caused encounters to lose their rhythm in what should have otherwise been tense gameplay. Most frustratingly of all, however, is the lack of any sustained camera control, specifically with the distance from your ship. Each time I set the camera close to my ship, the game would automatically zoom back out once I started flying again, leading to aggravating imprecisions when trying to fly around the planet's terrain. While this works for larger scale encounters to establish awe and a sense of scale, it can make trying to fly up a valley an irritating experience. And when most of the gameplay revolves around flying in your jet, a minor issue like camera control suddenly becomes too hard to ignore. Jett the Far Shore should be a great game. Its framework is there. When it has gorgeous environments, an aspiring soundtrack, and an awesome interstellar premise that encroaches that of the sublime, it's hard not to consider it as such. However, with frustrating game mechanics, simple gameplay, and a narrative that ends up feeling disjointed as quickly as it is wrapped up, it's ultimately difficult to recommend the game for those without the patience for a slow, meditative experience. I only wish we spent more time actually discovering what was behind the game's mystery, as opposed to the numerous mundane tasks we are forced to endure.